Hey there, Alex here. I know I did a video on the S10e not too long ago, and the Note 10 is from the same generation of phones, but I recently got my hands on a Note 10 again, and since it has been updated to One UI 4 with Android 12, I thought I would make another video talking about the phone. I've always been a fan of the Note 10's design, and I especially love the smaller one. I wish Samsung would make another smaller Note device again, but seeing that the Note series is probably going to be merged with the S series, it's kind of unlikely. Anyway, let's talk about how the phone is like to use today. In terms of just day-to-day usage, it's still a really competent phone. The Exynos version I have here still performs well enough most of the time, and even though it does warm up quite easily, it is able to handle not too intensive games just fine. I think performance seems to be slightly better compared to the S10e, perhaps due to the slightly better processor and faster storage, so that might be something worth taking note of. I'm not the biggest fan of the curved display here. The fingerprint sensor isn't the fastest, and it doesn't have a high refresh rate display, but I personally don't think any of those things are deal breakers. The display itself is still bright enough outdoors, and colors do look good. Combine that with stereo speakers, it's still an enjoyable experience when it comes to media consumption. Moving on, battery life wasn't amazing back when it was new, and it's still more or less the same. So for heavier users, I think the bigger Note is probably a better option. That said, for my usage, it's surprisingly still sufficient for a day of use. I do disable some features I don't use, and I tend to stick with Google services instead of Samsung's, so that might have helped. It supports wireless charging as well for those who are interested, but I tend to avoid it since the extra heat might cause more degradation to the battery. Which actually brings me to one of the new software features in One UI 4 that I love, the ability to limit charging once it reaches 85%. Along with the option to turn off fast charging, it makes extending battery longevity a lot easier. I also like the new privacy controls from Android 12, including indicators when the camera or microphone is in use, and the ability to turn off camera and microphone access on a system level. Samsung also kept the older style of quick settings instead of the oversized ones on Pixel devices, so I really appreciate that as well. On the whole, apart from a few design changes, it still looks pretty much like previous versions of One UI, and it has a lot of the same helpful features that I love, like double tap to sleep or taking a long screenshot. So it's a really nice software experience and one that I prefer over other Android devices. Not to mention as well that Samsung has been pretty good with their software updates. This Note 10 actually got the Android 12 update before my Xperia 5 Mark III. Anyway, while Android 12 is already the third major update on the Note 10, which means it's probably the last, Samsung has promised at least another year of security updates for the phone. Looking at the Note 8, Samsung will most likely deliver on that promise. I don't have much to say about the S Pen since I don't actually use it all that much aside from the occasional doodles, but I can see the remote camera trigger feature being quite useful for some folks at least. Anyway, it's a nice feature to have for folks who can take advantage of it, and if not, just leave it inside the phone at all times. Moving on to camera performance, it's nothing mind-blowing at this point in time, and it's definitely not as good as newer phones with larger sensors and whatnot, but it still looks pretty decent for the most part, and it is still able to capture decent looking images in most types of lighting conditions. But I do want to mention Samsung's Pro Video mode, which I have found new appreciation for now that I've been shooting more reviews with the Xperia 5 Mark III. The interface is simple and easy to use, and it has focus peaking, which is so useful. So it's still a pretty nice camera to shoot with overall, even if the actual quality isn't the best. In conclusion, the Note 10 is still such a nice phone, especially now that it can be found at lower prices, but I would still recommend the bigger Note 10 Plus if you're looking for better battery life, microSD card expandability, or planning to draw quite a bit on the phone. Or if you're looking for something with an audio jack and don't care about the S Pen or the slightly better performance, there is the S10 series as well. But if you're like me and just love this form factor and design, it is still a good option in 2022. I've been using it as my daily phone without any major issues, and even if it's not good enough for your needs anymore, it might be a nice phone to collect since we might never get another small Note series device again. Thanks for watching this video, and see you guys on the next one.